We are back with another episode of the Top 8 podcast, and this time we are talking about album artwork.
Yeah, the best or iconic album artwork from whatever genre of music. I say best or iconic because I have some personal favorites that aren't necessarily great artwork, but they're iconic for the genre and the time. So, yeah, we'll get into it.
I'm Matt Batiste.
And I'm TJ, your co-host as always.
And I feel like I just realized I probably should have added like some Tool album artwork on there because Tool album artwork is usually really freaking good, but I didn't put them on my list. And that's like so we're going to start the podcast off with an honorable mention for Tool. Do you have them on your list?
No, I didn't even consider them. Honestly, never been a big Tool fan. So I can't picture what any of their artwork looks like, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, they had this one artist, I think his name is Alex Gray, and fantastic artist, very cool stuff, and it's very unique to their style.
The Latter Alice album. I do know this one.
They have some cool artwork. So we're gonna start that off with a shout out to their artist. But you're not on any of our lists. So starting off
in other news,
number 8. What do you have?
I have Nevermind by Nirvana.
Oh, okay.
Which is like, I put it on here because it's an iconic album. Mm-hmm. Kind of controversial given everything that's come up about, the individual in this picture.
Yeah, I know. It's sue him. Oh, okay. I'm not suing anymore. Oh, okay. We settled. Sue him again. Like,
exactly.
Enough of this at this point.
Yeah, but like you see it and you immediately know it's Nirvana. Mm-hmm. So I had to give the nod to it, even though it's not one of my personal favorites. It's definitely an iconic one that deserves to be on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to argue with that. I think my list, I probably should have used more of the just of all time album artwork. If I'm being completely honest, I did more of the emo and pop punk stuff.
Okay.
I think maybe that was just my frame of mind when I was making my list, was just sort of keeping it within the genre. I don't know why I didn't think of of all time. I think our roles just kind of oddly reversed recently.
I know. Usually I'm doing all this.
And I'm doing the objective, you're doing subjective. And now it's I'm doing subjective, you're doing objective. But
I did a mix.
Mine, number 8, is Life's Not Out to Get You.
Iconic. I have it tattooed on me. So
yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's different. In another episode that we talked about, that ended up being our collective number 1 record for pop punk records in the 2010s. So it kind of defined that pop punk decade. And
I actually don't have it on my list, but
I told you our lists are going to be totally different this time around because I went fully subjective and into the pop punk and emo world and less of the overall general sense of things, because otherwise Nirvana would be on my list.
I tried to also do artwork that kind of represents the album itself, and I think Neck Deep did a really good job with their new album. The color scheme and the kind of cartooniness of it was really, I felt like it just matched the vibe of the music within. Yeah. So yeah, I get that for Life's Not Out to Get You, but I think their new record specifically,
I agree,
was really good for that.
What do you have at number 7?
Number 7. So this is one of the ones where I'm it's not good artwork, but it's immediately what I think of when I think of 90s, early 2000s new metal, and it's Slipknot self-titled.
Yeah, okay.
Because for this entire album release cycle, they were completely anonymous. Mm-hmm. So you see this on the shelf, it's just these 9 random dudes in mass staring at you intently. There's something
who are they? We
visceral,
don't know.
There's something visceral and intriguing about it, and yeah, I don't know. I thought it had to be on my list.
Yeah, I think it's a cool album artwork. I don't know if I would maybe call it iconic. I feel like that's more of a subjective
This is
thing.
definitely a personal fave. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, it's good album artwork.
Yeah.
For me at number 7, I have the Used in Love and Death.
Of course.
This album needs to get mentioned every single time we do an episode, obviously. But the heart hanging from a tree is just iconic emo imagery. And I don't know what else to say beyond that. It's iconic. It's one of those images that people have tattooed on them.
Yep.
It's one of the most iconic emo album art covers of all time. So
yeah, I would agree. I definitely like it more than the self-titled. I think it's definitely a standout in terms of
I'm not
artwork.
a fan of the self-titled album artwork, to be completely honest. I love the album itself. Not a fan of the artwork.
That's fair. Okay, number 6 for me is The Clash's London Calling.
Iconic.
Which is, I mean, it just like embodies when I think of like old school punk music. This is what I picture, like the dude about to smash the guitar. So representative for the entire genre.
Yeah. So like just punk in general.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that had to be on my list.
Absolutely. I agree with this one. Not on my list again. But the like how iconic it was is just you can't even argue that. Like it inspired people to smash their guitars.
Yeah.
Like that's what that album did. Like it's The Clash. I'm a huge fan of The Clash.
Looking at this, you know what you're going to get. Too. Yeah. Like you know what kind of album you're about to listen to.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
For number 6, I have The Story So Far, What You Don't See.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, I've got that just because like the imagery of it all is just, once again, kind of similar to Neck Deep's album. It's kind of like defining of that era of pop punk. And so when you're talking about like pop punk albums, what artwork do you think of immediately and can you immediately see? And for me, like when I see, even when someone says The Story So Far, immediately I see that
Picture
album.
that album, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
What is number 5?
Number 5 for me is a newer record, and it's Boundaries, new album from this year.
Okay.
Because it's like, it just screams out like trying to break through the noise. And if you've listened to this record, it's very, very heavy. It's like,
it kind of looks like there's a face coming out of there.
It is, yeah. So it's
okay.
like you have to try to make something out of the darkness. You have to make something out of the noise, which I think you have to kind of pull out your own interpretations from this record, like the music itself too,
including the artwork. Apparently.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, I think the kind of like dark and distorted nature of the art really matches the music.
Yeah.
So this one it really stood out to me.
That's a cool one. I like that one.
Yeah.
It's very different. And like, yeah.
It's
like
something
you said,
I've never seen anything like this. And you're like, yeah, you're looking for something in the noise. That's what it says to me.
It's unlike the Metallica's Black album where it's just kind of like really faded, all black, but you can still kind of faded see the logo.
Yeah, no, I really like this.
For me, I have The Hotelier, Home Like No Place There Is.
Okay.
We talked about this album on a past episode. I don't know if you know what the album artwork looks like.
Oh, yes. Okay.
The Home. And it's just such an, I mean, this is an
iconic. I know
emo
this
album. And it's an iconic emo cover. There's something about houses with emo covers that
I'm picturing like the American football.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my number 5, just because it's so iconic in and of itself. Yeah.
Sweet. My next one is a really random pull. So number 4 for me is the Acacia Strain's Slow Decay album.
Ooh.
From, I think it was 2020. It was around the pandemic. I can't remember exactly. But the way they rolled out the artwork was super cool. So it's called The Slow Decay.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they rolled it out was they did 2 songs like every month. Mm-hmm. And they did it as like each letter. So like they started with D. So it's like you have this nice forest scene. And then the next month was E, and it starts to slowly decay.
Yeah.
And then it did it over time. So like with every 2 songs, it gets more and more decayed over time. And like, I remember when this was happening, people were like, what the hell are they spelling?
Yeah.
And then like when the Y came out, you're like, oh, slowly decaying. And like the artwork doing that over time, just like super cool to me.
It's such a cool concept and way to like market and roll out your music.
Exactly. Yeah. So this I thought was just like super cool. And I wanted to give it the shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's a great one. For me at number 4, I have Title Fight's Hyperview. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, okay.
So the reason why I have
does this speak to you?
This one as being iconic is because this is actually one of those things where sorry, I'm trying to pull up the data. Because I wanted to pull up where exactly it was. So this was taken in Wilkes-Barre, which is in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And it was just one of those things where it was such an iconic piece for the band and for like modern emo and like 2010s emo. We're to the point where like if you were driving through this area, people would stop and take pictures of it. Like,
oh, really?
It was like, oh, like that's the Title Fight album. And there was actually a big whole case where the town was actually talking about taking down the mural, and title fight fans actually ended up saving it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. So it's just like it's a big mural. It's a big spot where
Got
like
some history to it at this point.
Yeah, and now it's almost like I feel like, you know, why would you even take that down if you have? It's almost like a tourist attraction for this town. You know. So
Cool.
I thought that was really cool. I like the logo. It, you know, it ends up being an iconic album cover in emo history, and people will go, like, people know where it is now, what it is, and it's like it's a part of that town now, right?
Yeah. That's a cool pick. Number 3 for me is artwork that I think represents an entire time and genre of music, and it's Enema of the State. I see this and you think early 2000s pop punk. And I mean, people like will dress up as this for Halloween. Yep. Like, I don't know. It's iconic.
You got the old school logo over there too with the plus on her thing that got removed from the current
I know.
albums.
But yeah, no, I think that this record is just like, it represents an entire time of music, and yeah, it speaks for itself.
I will talk about that later. What number are you at right now?
That was my number 3.
That was your number 3. Okay, my number 3 is American Football, self-titled.
Oh, okay.
Just the house. Emo house. Yep. Once again, same thing. There was actually a story a little while ago. The band actually bought the house.
Oh, really?
Which is super cool. Yeah, so they own the house now. I gotta fact check that and double check. But yeah, I remember seeing a bunch of articles about American Football buying the house, and it's an iconic emo cover, house. That's why I said earlier, I was like, you know, when it comes to emo and homes and houses, I don't know what it is, but like
that's the thing.
It's like the house has almost become a meme now, but it's also, you know, it's been reworked in artwork.
Yeah.
Like it's a tourist attraction. Like what suburban home is a tourist attraction? You know what I mean?
So true.
So yeah, that's emo tourism.
Love it. Okay, wow, this one is my number 2. I really love this artist, and this is my favorite work from this artist. It's A Day to Remember's Homesick.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen like the full piece before, but like expanding outside of the regular cover, there's like this whole other spider scene that's going on, and it's just like, it's super dark and distorted, but like it always really spoke to me.
What about this speaks to you?
There's something like, I don't know. It's like trying to find the light coming through the darkness. Like you're in this dark, daunting forest, and it's like kind of like if you're going through that dark time in your life, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You just need like the path to get you there. Yeah. That's how I've always kind of interpreted this.
Cool.
But Dan Mumford, who did the artwork, did a lot of iconic records at this time too. So I think he did Devil Wears Prada's Plagues album. He did Sleepwalker from Parkway Drive, a bunch of other ones, but this was obviously my favorite. It's iconic.
This is on my honorable mentions list.
Okay.
Because I always loved this artwork as well. I was just curious what you had thought about it.
Yeah.
I had a feeling we'd be putting A Day to Remember in on this episode. We got to put them into every episode. But
it's my favorite artwork of all time.
It's really cool. It kind of gives me now like that. Obviously, it wasn't out at the time, but like kind of gives me a little bit of like Stranger Things vibes. Now
yeah,
back to it.
It's like the comic book type of vibe too. I don't know. It's really unique. So
yeah, it's really unique. It's really cool. You didn't see really that many bands doing something like that. So I definitely like that artwork. For me at number 2, I'm surprised you didn't have it on here, unless it's your number 1. I have 3 Cheers.
Nope, don't have it.
You don't have that on there. I feel like that's also. I told you mine is very emo and pop punk, like heavy.
I would say like it is an iconic album, but when I was giving my picks for like the iconic records, I was trying to throw back to like some of the old school ones that I just considered to be iconic. But it's I don't know, anything kind of newer. I was just like my favorites that I think represent like the album more. I don't know if like the 3 Cheers artwork really represents the record for me. It's just like, I don't know.
It's always been like cool emo artwork for me.
Yeah.
3 Cheers. Like, I don't know. My Chem had really, really cool artwork.
Yeah.
Like even if you didn't like their music, like it was super emo artwork.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So it was just, and then 3 Cheers, it was better than the Black Parade imagery in my mind.
I like the Black Parade one
t-shirts.
because like you just have like I forget what his actual name is, the leader of the marching band. With I think it's like that is my favorite MyChem logo, like that era of MyChem.
Okay.
So I do really love the Black Parade artwork. It's just like some of this artwork isn't just like a band logo and something small. This is just like, I don't know, I think it's like actually like very artistic, some of the ones that I'm picking.
Yeah.
Whereas that one isn't necessarily.
But no, I feel like Three Cheers is artistic though. And I think that's why I picked it.
Yeah.
Because it is artistic.
Maybe because it was never that My Chem album for me that I just don't like put it as high. I don't know.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Three Cheers. The artwork and the songs beat out Black Parade.
Whoa.
What do you have at number one?
My number one is There Is a Hell. Believe me, I've seen it. There Is a Heaven. Let's keep it a secret from Bring Me the Horizon.
Okay.
I was between this and Sempiternal. I didn't want to put both of them on there. But this one I think is really good for... It's like the duality you find in the record. So like there's really soft and like touching sections, and then there's really aggressive sections. And I think this
light and dark. Yeah,
this imagery just like perfectly encapsulates that. As well as like the lyrical themes of kind of like dealing with religion and God and faith and whatever. I don't know, it always really spoke to me. So this is my number one.
Yeah, I think
for representing like A Day to Remember's Homesick is probably my favorite artwork, but I think this is my favorite artwork for representing the music within.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely think that even though I like Sempiternal as an album better, this artwork is a lot better than Sempiternal.
Yeah.
My number one is Enema.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Like, you know,
yeah,
you kind of mentioned, and we talked about it. It's a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
It defined a decade of pop punk fans. Like, there's not really much to say. Like when you think of Blink-182, even though Enema is not my favorite album, like we've talked about this, the album artwork is the most iconic.
It is.
I had to put that one at number one.
The butterfly tattoo, like the Blink logo, the way you can put like the band name in like an interesting way on the record, this achieves that perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's both of our lists. I guess we should figure out which ones belong in the top 8 since we both. I think
we only have one overlap. Yeah.
We had. So this will be interesting to see what we place and where.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll be
let's
right
talk
back.
About it. All right, this one was actually one of our hardest ones because we were trying to shuffle it out just because our lists were both so different.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's shake it all out. How did it all shake out?
Number 8, we decided to slot in Love and Death, which. We were kind of talking about that or Three Cheers. I personally like the In Love and Death artwork more. It was one of my honorable mentions that I forgot to say. So we decided to put it at 8.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially because both of them are iconic emo imagery.
Yep.
And the tree with the heart hanging from the tree is just as iconic, if not more, and just a little bit more of like an iconic, I guess, logo. I also wanted to give out some honorable mentions because I realized that I actually had a whole list of them that I forgot to mention as we were recording the first bit. But Circa Survive, Juturna, and honestly, anything that Anthony Green has done has always had amazing artwork. And I really wanted to add them onto my list. But like, look at that. Is that not like, are those not the coolest? Like, it's almost like just like a lore.
It's a very specific style of art that they have. Yeah.
So it's like Circa Survive's style was just really, really cool. And it was also very pivotal to me personally, like those albums that I really wanted to make sure that they had a mention. I also had Under Oath, They're Only Chasing Safety.
Definitely one of mine as well. I love that album.
It's just when I think of like post-hardcore and that, like that album comes to mind immediately. Like when I think of Under Oath, immediately I see this.
Yeah, I should have put it on my list to be honest, because
I'm actually surprised you didn't. I thought you would have that on your list, and I was like, I will give you that one. I would have been willing to give you that one because it was on my honorable mentions if you brought it up.
I think like again, I tried to say like. I tried to do too much of a balancing act where I was like, okay, this is like super representative of this album, like with the music you're going to hear. This is like just visually appealing. That one was like one of those ones that's like super visually appealing. Mm-hmm. Doesn't necessarily represent the music in my opinion, but the artwork itself is iconic.
Yeah.
So I could have put it on there to like represent post-hardcore of that time, which I probably should have, but just off the list.
I also have Dookie on here. Because like that album,
that's like 90s like punk music for sure.
And then I have Does This Look Infected? I have Homesick on here, so like Homesick just missed my list. And then I have a couple of albums from a band that's canceled that we're not going to get into, but it's also kind of like hard because you want to like mention how iconic some of these emo album artwork was, but then, like
I know.
there are also other iconic albums, so we're not gonna harp on that. And honestly, if you're listening and you were listening to emo music in the 2000s, you
know
probably
exactly what
what we're talking about with that. So we won't get more into that. But what do we have at number 7? Now that we've kind of gone over. Do you have any honorable mentions, by the way?
No, I kind of listed them off. Like They're Only Chasing Safety definitely was one, and Love and Death was definitely one. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of any off the top of my head right now. But Life's Not Out to Get You was also one of my honorable mentions. But at number 7, we put Hyperview.
Yes. Now, Hyperview was one of those ones where I'm happy that apparently the town was like putting billboards up in that area and they wanted to cover it up. And
I just like the story behind it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's really cool. And like, it's not even the best Title Fight album, but like it's just a cool mural that people took pictures with. And I really like the whole like emo tourism thing. It was the same thing with the other homes with the hotelier and American football, right? Like it's really cool when you have a little piece of random artwork that ends up being a landmark after.
Yeah, for sure. Number 6, kind of similar, American football.
Yes. Once again, same thing. That home, because this album came out in the 90s, late 90s. This has been an iconic imagery for a very long time within the emo scene. So
for sure. Number 5, we put Life's Not Out to Get You, which was on your list. Definitely one of my honorable mentions. I think it does. That's what you picture. Like I know you said it about the story so far. I think where you like picture 2010s pop punk. I'm thinking of this.
Yes.
So
and I think too, when you kind of go into the further part of our list, you're going to start noticing that all of these album artworks, not only are they cool artwork, but they've also almost kind of defined a generation or a genre or anything like that, right? So that's where you get the iconic part of it.
For sure. Starting with number 4, London Calling, which is just like, that's punk imagery in a nutshell.
That it defined punk artwork and punk for a very, very long time.
For sure.
And the Clash are just one of those bands. And if you're listening and you're into like old school punk, the Clash are way better than the Sex Pistols, Ramones, any of them. Clash are them.
That's them. Number 3, we put Nevermind, which realistically, this artwork could go on a list of the worst artworks of all time or a list of the most iconic artworks of all time.
Hard agree.
Yeah.
Hard agree. I don't like the artwork because there's something that feels weird about it.
Looking at a naked baby, for sure.
And I always think of like,
who made the creative decision, really?
But like, think about it like this. For me, I'm like, when I'm playing a record and I have Nevermind on vinyl, I take my record and I put the record on, I press play, and then I put the artwork like up on a little stand, like a little now playing stand next to the record player as it's spinning. And you're leaving that in like your living room while you're listening to your record. And now you're displaying a picture of a child or a baby in a pool. Hanging.
Why?
It's just like it feels weird, but also you see that baby in the pool and it's iconic for over a decade.
I know. It's hard not to.
Music.
It's hard not to acknowledge it, but you're acknowledging it for like, why was this a decision that was made?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one that was left off both of our lists that I considered that I'm surprised you didn't have, Master of Puppets. I feel like that's a very iconic album art from Metallica.
Yeah, I think
the
with
crosses
Metallica
and everything.
With Metallica, my brain always goes first to the Black Album. And with the Black Album, I actually don't like the artwork.
Oh, really?
The
Okay.
Black Album. It's kind of
it's just flat, right? Like it's
flat. It's
there's
boring.
nothing really to it.
I actually like the Injustice for All album artwork.
Okay.
Metallica actually has some pretty good artwork.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
okay, number 2, Data Remembers Homesick, baby.
Yes, this is obviously your favorite.
Yeah, it's. I feel like it's such a unique style. That like comic book graphic design kind of look to it, and I love the expanded nature of it because I hadn't seen it forever until I actually got the vinyl, and then like when you open up the vinyl, you see the full artwork. I'm like, holy shit, this is super cool. So yeah, I think that just kind of represented that era of my life too, where I made the transition from pop punk into heavier music. That's what I picture.
I picture those old 2000 Scene Kid band t-shirts with
Yeah.
like all the big bubbly thing, but this was like a mature real artwork version and not like a cringy like band tee version of like Scene Kids wearing like the most ridiculous vibrant t-shirts ever.
The neon cartoon monster merch.
Yeah, it kind of looked like they took that neon cartoon monster merch and then made it like more
represent something.
And like made it like they gave a purpose to it.
Exactly.
And they like refined it. So it was like cool and adult and like, you know, it was artsy rather than like
that's why I like it too.
You know, cheesy.
And then our number one, no surprise, representing all of pop punk in the 2000s, Enema of the State.
Do we have to say more?
No, not really.
You know, who are you dressing up as for Halloween next year?
The nurse from the what the hell?
We got to do a special Halloween episode where we're both dressed up as the nurse from Enema.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think it's just iconic. There's no really denying it.
Once again, defined a generation. Our top few records all
the respective
defined
generations of whatever.
At least a decade.
Yeah, for sure. That's been an episode.
I want to know, what is your favorite artwork? Because this one was extra hard to find, right? Because for this one, we're trying to think in our brains of, you know, what stood out to us the most. We're going through playlists and albums and being like, do we like this artwork? Do we not like this artwork? Which one's iconic? Which one's not? And like, that can be tough because we might have been scrolling through our playlists and completely glossed over another album that was totally iconic that we missed.
I mean, just like the music, the art is so subjective too. Like, what do you take away from the art that's being displayed?
So let us know, what ones did we miss? Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Top 8 Podcast. Please remember to, you know, like, subscribe, follow the show, follow us on Instagram, and continue to have conversations with us. We love that.
If you're listening on Spotify, please leave us 5 stars. It definitely helps.
Same thing with Apple, and leave us a review on Apple.
Yes, for sure.
So, anyways, we love you.
We'll see you next week.